The year was 1889, and the sun was bleeding out over the Texas plains, painting the sky in streaks of crimson and gold. Dust drifted like smoke across the town of Red Hollow, a small, cruel place where people carried secrets like guns on their hips and judged others faster than they drew their pistols. That evening they came for her. Clara Jameson, the stable girl everyone whispered about but no one truly knew. Her hair was the color of dark chestnut, her skin kissed by the sun, her eyes holding the quiet sadness of someone who'd spent a lifetime surviving in silence. She was half-blood, as the townsfolk spat with venom, born to a Cherokee mother and a white railroad worker who had disappeared before she could even remember his face. She grew up in the outskirts of town, in a cabin her mother built with her bare hands, where kindness was rare but loneliness was constant. Clara had worked at the stable since she was 12, cleaning stalls and tending to sick horses. Animals didn't care about bloodlines, and for that reason, she felt more at home among them than among people. She kept her head down, never spoke unless spoken to, and learned early that silence could keep her safe. But no matter how quiet she stayed, hatred found her. In Red Hollow, ignorance ran deep and prejudice was inherited like land. The churchgoers prayed on Sundays and spat in her direction on Mondays. Men stared too long when they thought no one noticed, and women clutched their children tighter when she walked by. She had no friends, only a few people who pitied her enough to look away instead of laugh. One night, when the mayor's son, a drunken fool named Travis, cornered her near the barn, she fought back. Her mother had taught her never to kneel before evil, even when the world demanded it. The next morning, Travis was found dead in the river, his body bruised and cold. No one asked questions. No one needed proof. The town needed someone to blame, and Clara was the easiest target. By sundown, a mob had formed, men with whiskey on their breath and hate in their eyes. They dragged her through the street while children watched from windows, some crying, others cheering. The sky turned dark as they reached the old oak tree, the same tree where outlaws once swung. And as the wind howled through the branches, Clara stood there trembling, her wrists bound, her heart racing, knowing that in Red Hollow, mercy was as rare as rain. The crowd around the oak tree had turned into a sea of shadows under the dim moonlight, their faces twisted with rage and drunken righteousness. The sheriff stood at the front, puffing his chest as if law gave him the right to murder. "Half-blood filth," someone shouted, and laughter followed, cruel, hollow laughter that echoed through the field. Clara could barely breathe. The rope itched against her neck as they tightened the noose, the coarse fibers biting into her skin. She wanted to scream, but her voice was gone. Her knees shook, her vision blurred, and still she prayed, not for herself but for her mother's spirit to forgive her for being born into such a hateful world. The stool was kicked from under her, and for a moment there was silence. Just the creak of rope and the soft rustle of wind through the oak leaves. The crowd watched as her body jerked, as life began to slip away, and still, no one looked away. It wasn't justice they wanted. It was a show. Then, out of nowhere, the night shattered with a single gunshot. The sound tore through the air like thunder, and sparks flew as the bullet split the rope clean in half. Clara's body dropped, but strong arms caught her before she hit the dirt. The mob gasped as a man stepped forward from the darkness. Jacob Carter, the rancher from the edge of town. His black stallion stood behind him, steam rising from its nostrils, its hooves still wet with dust. Jacob's rifle was smoking, his eyes hard as steel. He looked like a man pulled straight from legend, broad-shouldered, sun-scarred, and dangerous in the way only honest men could be. "You touch her again," he growled, his voice cold and even, "and I swear, I'll bury every last one of you where you stand." The sheriff took a step back, his hand twitching near his revolver, but he knew better. Jacob Carter wasn't just another rancher. He was the man who'd broken a bandit siege on his own ranch years ago. The man whose word carried more weight than the law itself in Red Hollow. The men who had been laughing seconds ago now looked at their boots, muttering excuses, trying to vanish into the shadows they came from. The fire in Jacob's eyes didn't waver as he cut the rope still dangling from Clara's neck, tossing it to the ground like trash. She was limp in his arms, her breathing faint but steady. Without another word, he lifted her, mounted his horse, and rode off into the darkness, leaving behind a town that had just seen its first taste of fear. Jacob Carter rode through the night without looking back, the stars guiding his way as the faint light of dawn began to touch the horizon. Clara lay unconscious in his arms, her head resting against his chest, her breathing shallow but alive. The ride to his ranch was long, Miles of open land, the kind of silence that carried weight. When he finally arrived, he carried her inside his home. A quiet wooden house surrounded by fields of wild grass and fences that stretched as far as the eye could see. He laid her gently on his bed, cleaned the bruises on her neck, and sat beside her through the night, never once closing his eyes. The fire crackled softly, the only sound breaking the silence as he whispered to himself, "You're safe now, girl. No one will touch you again." For years, Jacob had lived alone, a man with a scar on his heart deeper than any wound. His wife had died in childbirth, and since then he had sworn off love, believing the world was too cruel for soft things. But something about the way Clara fought to survive, even when life gave her nothing but pain, struck something fierce in him. Days turned into weeks before she could speak. Each morning she woke up with a jolt, gasping, the ghost of the rope still around her throat. Jacob was always there, sitting by the bed, offering her water and quiet comfort. "You're not alone," he told her one night, his voice low and steady. She wanted to believe him, but years of hate had taught her not to trust kindness, not when it came from men. Yet Jacob didn't demand anything from her. He didn't ask her story, didn't touch her without reason. Instead, he taught her to ride, to mend fences, to breathe again without fear. The ranch became her shelter, a place where the sky didn't judge and the wind didn't whisper lies. But the town of Red Hollow didn't forget. Rumors spread like wildfire, that the rancher had taken the half-blood girl as his mistress, that he'd betrayed his kind. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Clara stood by the porch, tears in her eyes. "You'll lose everything for me," she said softly. Jacob stepped close, his hands rough and honest as he lifted her chin. "I already did," he whispered. "Now I'm just fighting for what's right." The words hung in the air, heavy and real. And as the wind carried the smell of rain, Clara knew that for the first time in her life someone had chosen her. Not out of pity, but out of love fierce enough to fight a whole town.